was just a simple dinner, and I can swear that it was nothing serious, but now, my husband is making it out to be something bigger. Guys, I don't understand how a harmless dinner with a guy friend has suddenly got my husband all riled up. How complicated can a marriage be? Why is he trying to make a mountain out of a molehill? My husband has refused to see me, or even talk to me, just because I went to dinner with a guy friend of mine. I don't even know where to start from. My name is Agatha, and I'm a 27-year-old housewife from Florida. I'm married to Tony, a 29-year-old dentist. I know some of you might be surprised at me tagging myself as a housewife. I always get looks of judgment from people whenever I say I'm a housewife who's married to a dentist. The combination is always confusing for them. Well, I'm a housewife, and my husband and I just got married a year ago. We dated for over 3 years before we got married. So even though there's fire on the mountain in my marriage right now, I'll describe it as the best decision I've ever made. I love my husband a lot, and our marriage has been the definition of great. My husband has always been an alpha male, and everything he does shows that. He's a no-nonsense man, and he doesn't take disrespect at all. I've never had a problem with that, and I've supported all of his strict mannerisms. But this latest development has me doubting it all. He's overreacting, and I'm 100% sure I'm not wrong. I don't understand why he's ghosting me all of a sudden just because of a single dinner. It's nothing outrageous, yet he's acting like I broke the Constitution. I get that he's an alpha male and they all have huge egos, but hold on. We all have to draw the line somewhere, right? I'm very upset, and that's why I want to share this on Reddit. I want to tell you everything that happened before asking for your opinions. I decided to ask total strangers for their opinions because I believe that the opinions of strangers are always honest and unfiltered. They never lie because they really don't care about your feelings. Before I met my husband, I've always been an antisocial person with little to no friends. But I had 2 friends in both elementary school and high school, a boy and a girl, and they were actually siblings. We also went to the same college and graduated together. I'm very close to those siblings because they practically stood by me all through school. I'm closer to the guy who is named Kenneth. We were practically bros, LOL. But Kenneth and I lost contact after college because my phone got stolen and we no longer lived in the same town. As for his sister, she got married years ago and moved to another country with her husband. My husband, Tony, is literally upset because Kenneth contacted me recently. If you're wondering how he contacted me, I'll tell you. So my husband and I were having dinner one night before something unexpected happened. It was very unexpected, and I never saw it coming. My phone suddenly rang, and when I picked it up, it was an unknown number, and the caller didn't talk for a very long time. I cut the call since the caller was taking time to pick up. I didn't want to waste time because I was at dinner with my husband, and we have a rule not to use phones during dinner except it was important. I thought it was a call from my sister because I'd been expecting her call, and that was why I picked up. The caller kept calling even after I muted the call several times. My husband finally told me to answer the call, and so I did. I was shocked to discover that it was a call from Felicia, Kenneth's sister. I was very surprised because we had lost contact for years. We even lost contact way before my phone got stolen. The fact that she just called me out of the blue was very abnormal for me, so I asked her if there was any problem. So guys, there was really a problem just like I suspected. She was crying and sobbing over the phone. I was really shocked and I didn't even know what to do. I waited for her to calm down before asking her what the problem was. She told me she had something important to tell me and wanted to see me the next day. I was very shocked to hear that from her. I was shocked because the last time I'd seen Felicia was on her wedding day. She moved to another country with her husband, just like I mentioned earlier. So I didn't get how she planned on meeting me. I asked her how she planned on meeting me, and that was when she dropped the bomb. She told me she was in Florida, and she had been in Florida for over 2 days. Yes, guys, that's the truth. I had a lot of questions to ask her just that night alone, but she promised to answer all my questions when we met the next day. I told my husband everything that had happened, and he told me he'd drive me there the next day. When I got there the next day and introduced Felicia to my husband, she told me she wanted to speak to just me alone. I knew that my husband was offended, but I had no choice then to agree to her request. Tony gave me just 30 minutes to talk to her, LOL. I'm not even joking at all. He was angry that she requested privacy when he was my husband. I won't even lie, I understand where he's coming from when it comes to that aspect. But I had to speak to Felicia privately because she looked tired and unwell. Tony waited for me in the car while I spoke to Felicia. I never expected her to say all the things she said to me. To be honest, I was left speechless for a very long time because I found it hard to understand why her marriage ended. Yes, Felicia told me her marriage ended because she cheated on her husband. Apparently, she slept with her husband's coworker, and he found out. He sent her out of the house and made her homeless in a foreign country. Felicia told me that she had no choice but to return back to Florida. What she did was very strong, and I have no excuse for her, but I felt very sorry for her. She looked like she lost a lot of weight. Well, I'm losing a lot of weight now that my husband has decided to ghost me. The worst part is that I didn't even cheat. I had to ask Felicia how she got my number because I was honestly curious. She just told me that she spoke to some of her friends on Facebook who were friends with my sister, and that's how she contacted my sister and asked for my phone number. I didn't get why my sister did not tell me she shared my phone number ahead of time, but I later discovered that sister sent me a message on WhatsApp, but I didn't know. I can't be the only one who is not that social, right? Even though I didn't want to sound like a heartless person, I had to ask Felicia why she needed to see me. She told me that she urgently needed some cash and accommodation. Apparently, Felicia had been living in a hotel for 2 days, and the little money she had left was almost finished. I felt really bad for her, and I had to remember our past as close friends, so I promised to get back to her. I'm a housewife with no particular income. I had to speak to my husband about it first, before I made the move. After the meeting with Felicia, I told my husband everything she told me when we got back home. Let me just put it this way. Tony was not happy about Felicia's request at all. He didn't even like the fact that I agreed to think about her request. He was very angry, and he even refused to help me. He kept saying that she deserved what she got, and that cheating on her husband was very deceitful. I also believed that Felicia deserved what she got, but I could not just fold my hands. She was once one of my closest friends, and I had just 2. We practically grew up together, so I had to help her. My husband and I were literally at loggerheads over that case, and I think that's exactly where our problems began. He didn't like the fact that I was determined to help her at all, and he never missed a chance to make that clear to me. Since Tony refused to assist me financially, I had to take out money from my savings. Even though I'm a housewife, I still have small businesses that I run. I give the money to my sister, and she runs the business. Since Tony made it clear that he didn't want to get involved in the drama with Felicia, I just gave her some money on my own. She was very grateful, and she even started crying. I was very touched, guys, and I honestly felt like crying too. I never imagined that my close friend would end up like that. I said my goodbyes to her even though she made it clear that she'd still be in Florida for a long time. I had to cut all contact with her because I knew that Tony would not like the idea of me being friends with a woman that cheated on her husband. I know my husband very well, so I made sure I made no mistake. Even after cutting all contacts with her, Tony still made sure I never secretly snuck out to see her. I didn't see anything wrong with that because I knew just how strict my husband is. To be honest, I do not want my husband to be in contact with a guy that cheated on his wife, too. That's why I decided to follow his wishes. Even though I used to agree with him, his stance on this particular case actually makes me quite angry. Let me get straight to the point now and tell you all how I got in contact with Kenneth. Few months after Felicia contacted me, I got another unexpected call. It was Kenneth who called me. To be sincere, even when Felicia asked me for money, I never asked her how Kenneth was faring. I didn't see the need to ask her because I assumed that he would have been doing poorly if she asked me for help instead of him. I didn't even ask about Kenneth at all, but on this particular day I was shocked that Kenneth called me. He told me he was very grateful to me and that he owed me a lot. I asked him why, and he told me that Felicia informed him that I'd provided for her when she was broke. I was actually embarrassed that he felt the need to thank me for doing something for my own old friend. I told him not to worry about it and that it was my pleasure. Isn't that what we all say when we're tired of getting too many thanks? Well, I did the same thing. Kenneth didn't seem to want to stop. He told me that there was so much he had to tell me. He told me that a lot had happened over the years, and he would like to tell me all about it. Of course, that was the first time in years that I was talking to him. He was practically my closest friend because he was closer to me than my sister. The fact that I suddenly got a call from him unraveled me. Help me out here, guys. Was I wrong for not immediately saying no? This is an old friend that had been my friend for years. I had no malicious intentions, and that's why I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't even say yes immediately. I told him that I'd think about it first and give him a reply after speaking to my husband. That was all I said to him. I knew that Felicia must have told him I had a husband, but I had to say it again, just in case he doubted her. Talking to Tony about it was not easy at all. In fact, it was actually very far from easy. I knew that Tony would not like that idea at all. He didn't even want me speaking to Felicia. But I had to try first. Telling him was the only option because I knew that I would feel bad if he went to see his old female friend without letting me know first. One experiment I like to do in our marriage is that I like to make sure I do not do what I would not like my husband to do to me. It works most of the time, and that is what helps in our communication skills. But now, I don't think we really have much communication skills because he's been ghosting me for days. When I spoke to him about it, his reaction was exactly how I pictured it. He didn't like the fact that both brother and sister suddenly wanted to see me after years simultaneously. He knew about Kenneth because I used to tell him about Kenneth even before we started dating officially. I used to tell him that Kenneth was a very good friend of mine and that we suddenly lost contact. Tony told me that he didn't want me to go. I didn't agree at all, and that was how we started having a lot of arguments. For me, it was not a big deal because I just wanted to go see a friend. I'd not seen him for years and I just wanted to see how he was faring. The part that baffles me the most is that Kenneth and I never even dated or had a romantic relationship. We were just close friends, and that was all there was to it. I can even swear right now that Kenneth and I never even shared or deep hug, not to even talk of a kiss. That is why I never agreed with Tony's decision not to let me see him. The only reason I even felt the need to ask for permission is because Kenneth is a guy, and I would not want my husband to see the opposite gender without telling me. I was not ready to back down, and Tony was also not ready to back down. Kenneth kept calling me and asking me if I had made up my mind yet. I discovered that he had to go on a business trip and that I was the reason it was still in Florida. I decided to wait one more week and see if Tony would change his mind, but nothing changed. That was when I decided to go see Kenneth without Tony's permission. I didn't want to keep making him stay longer in Florida when he had work to do. I also found it ridiculous that I could not even go see an old childhood friend of mine. I had to make that decision because I had wasted enough time waiting for Tony to come around. When I asked Tony to pick the date and time we should meet, he proposed that we meet at a restaurant at 6 p.m. I didn't like the fact that we were meeting in the evening, and I told him that. But he told me he had work that day, and that was why we had to meet in the evening. I just wanted to get the meeting over with, so I agreed. I left a note for Tony before he came back from work, so he would know where I went. Tony usually came back from work by 7 p.m., so I knew that I might not come back early before he came back from work. That's why I left a note. To be honest, I left up to 4 notes at different places in the house, so he would be able to see at least one. That was just my little way of making sure that he did not worry about where I was. At the end of the day, all my efforts were in vain, because Tony did not even care about all the majors I went through to make sure that he didn't misunderstand things. When I went to the restaurant to see Kenneth, I made it clear to him that I had to get back home early, so we could only talk for a maximum of 1 hour. He had no problem with that, and that was how he started telling me all about everything that had been going on in this life. He told me how Felicia refused to contact him after her husband sent her away, because she was scared of getting scolded by him. That finally made a lot of sense because I realized that she was feeling ashamed. Kenneth told me that he was now a real estate agent. I was really happy for him because I'd always known that he wanted to become a real estate agent. We talked about Felicia and how she's trying to get her life back together, and then we talked about all the developments in our life. It was nice to talk to an old friend after a long while. I didn't even finish the food before I told him I had to go. He told me he understood, and then he congratulated me on my marriage. I bade him goodbye before taking a taxi and going back home. So guys, that's literally how all the drama began. I went home and met drama. Literally. It was like there was fire on the mountain. Even before I stepped foot into the house, I could feel the tension from where I stood at the door. I don't even know how I can describe it to you all. My husband made a scene, and it was literally very surprising. Before I could even greet Tony, he started yelling at me continuously. He gave me no room to talk or even explain myself, and that was the most painful part. I didn't even think I had a reason to explain until I fought the anger and aggression he displayed. He started accusing me of cheating on him. I told him that I did not cheat on him and that I just went to dinner with Kenneth. Nothing I said seemed to be making any sense to Tony. He seemed to be more focused on everything he believed I'd done. He asked me why I went to the dinner without informing him first. I told him that it was because he'd refused even after almost 2 weeks of trying to persuade him. Tony told me that I could have still called him and told him where I was headed to. I asked him if he saw the notes I left behind, and he told me that none of those counted. According to him, I'd disrespected him by going to see a guy friend without informing him first. Tony did not even believe that I did not do anything with Kenneth. He was very determined to believe that something fishy had happened. I'm even honestly exhausted after everything that's been going on for the past few days. I can't even begin to state how traumatized I've been. I was trying to explain and tell Tony that nothing out of the ordinary happened. But the more I tried to explain, the more Tony kept talking over me. I am not even making things up or trying to lie. I'm basically saying the truth just as it is. I don't think there's any reason to lie or omit information when I am here trying to get advice on what to do. I'm just saying everything as it is, without any filters. The argument lasted for hours, and it was clear to me that Tony was not ready to see things from my own perspective. He told me that it was disrespectful that I choose to go see an old friend rather than listen to him. He made it seem like I'd chosen Kenneth over him. I used to hear that men had huge egos, but I've only recently experienced it. It seems like Tony's ego is bruised. I think what makes it worse is even the fact that it was dinner. Tony kept asking why we could not meet at a cafe or even in front of a coffee shop. He said he could not accept the fact that his wife left the house at 6 p.m. in the evening to go see a guy friend and have dinner before coming back home. He told me that there was nothing I could say to justify the fact that I had disrespected him. He also made it clear that he did not like the fact that I did not tell him before going that day. Even though I'll still keep saying that I told you my ahead of time, and he kept rejecting it, so I had no choice, I do understand that he was still angry. But I think it's just outrightly outrageous that he would not speak to me because of that. If he didn't just want to speak to me, it would be understandable. But the fact that it doesn't even want to see me or interact with me is just the highest level of wickedness. We are married. Misunderstandings happen and couples fight. They settle and they move past it. Nothing even happened. Not even a hug was shared. So why is Tony finding it hard to move past this? That night, I actually believed that he would forget all about it the next day after I apologized to him again. I went to sleep in the living room that day because it was obvious that he did not want to see me. I woke up early the next morning and prepared breakfast. I tried talking to him or even starting a little conversation, but all my efforts were in vain. I was very worried because I did not expect Tony to take up that matter like that. The fact that he even knows that it was just an ordinary dinner and nothing happened yet, he still chooses to remain cold and distant is what angers me the most. I want my husband back, and I'm honestly tired of having to beg for him to even look at him. I don't want our marriage to suffer because of something like that. That's why I'm trying my best to put my own ego aside and try to make this work. But I guess I'm married to the most strict alpha male. He never wants to change anything, he says, and I can see that he is determined to stay angry. It's a lot of pressure on me right now, and I don't even know how to feel. I'm living in the same house with my husband, but we are not even interacting like neighbors. I don't know how to even explain the level of hurt I feel. I'm even starting to feel guilty, even though I know that I did nothing wrong. I kept telling him for almost 2 weeks yet. His answer was always no. I could not pass by a lifetime opportunity to see my childhood friend. For what might have been the last time, I'm not saying that I want to see my ex-boyfriend. I'm saying that I want to see my old childhood friend. There's a difference between those two things, and the meaning is completely different. I decided to speak to my sister because she is literally the closest person to me. She's the one person that understands me even before I open my mouth to sleep. When I spoke to her, she suggested that she spoke to him on my behalf. She came over to the house one evening for dinner, and that was the first dinner in days when Tony agreed to stay at the dining table with me. My sister asked him why he was not talking to me, and Tony was very reluctant to speak. He said that he did not want to talk about it, but my sister was persistent. That's when Tony finally said that he did not like the idea of me meeting up with two siblings simultaneously. He also said that he did not like the fact that Felicia had cheated on her husband, and I decided to help her, even after he refused. Apparently, he did not like the idea of me meeting up with the brother of a girl who had cheated on her husband with his co-worker. According to him, Felicia and her brother were a bad influence, and the fact that the both of them suddenly wanted to start up a friendship did not sit well with him. I tried to make him understand that I was nothing like Felicia, and that I would never even think of cheating on him. He said he found it hard to believe that when I went ahead to go see Kenneth without telling him. We were literally back to square one, and the back and forth began again. He told my sister that he needed time to think and that he does not want to talk to me right away. After the dinner, my sister advised me to just give him time and not try to rush him. I agreed before seeing her off. To be honest, guys, even though I agreed, I don't want to follow that advice at all. I have read about many of such situations online, and this is usually how couples end up separating. A small issue can turn into a full-blown fight if it is not taken care of at the right time. One thing about marriages is that there is nothing like a break or time to think. Once the couple starts spending time away from each other and leaving problems unsolved, larger issues begin to arise and the couple is faced with bigger problems. I don't want that to be the situation in my marriage, and that is why I am here on Reddit today. I want to find a way to make peace with my husband without pushing him too much. I have realized that he has a big ego and does not like the idea of his wife choosing to go to have dinner with another man rather than listening to him. Even though I still think he's being too cruel, I don't want to disregard his feelings just because it does not resonate with what I believe. He has a right to think whatever he wants to think, and I have the responsibility of clearing up what I started. My sister is also trying to make me understand that I shouldn't have left that evening without giving him a call first. After writing this out and reading it over and over again, I also believe that I could have done things differently. I don't have the same opinions I had when I first started this, but I still have my opinions. Please help me, Reddit. I need your help because my marriage is literally falling before my eyes. I cannot just stand by and watch everything drown because of a stupid misunderstanding. It's almost like I am now in Felicia's position, just that I haven't been kicked out yet. Imagine being in the position of someone that ran to you for help. Well, it is not a great position to be, and I hope that things don't get that bad. Hopefully it won't, because I don't want to suffer for something I didn't do. It's almost like I'm regretting being a good Samaritan. I should have just ignored everything, right? But no. At the end of the day, I owe some form of respect and loyalty to the friends I once had. I'll choose my husband in marriage over those friends in a heartbeat. So I hope it doesn't get to that. Please don't leave me hanging, Reddit. I'm literally counting on you all to come up with a solution for me. I'm going to appreciate each and every comment I get, and don't be hesitant to judge me. I knew exactly what I was getting into before putting this post up here. My husband will soon be back from work, and even though he does not speak to me now, I don't want him to see me typing on the computer with so much focus. It will be very embarrassing for him to find out what I'm doing. Till the next update, guys. Update. It's the troubled wife again. LOL. This time I think that some of my troubles, or even most of my troubles, have been lifted off my shoulders. I cannot help but thank you all for it. It's the woman who refused to take permission, lol. The comments even had me crying and laughing at the same time. I have so many nicknames and they are so long. Not even the most controversial Reddit stories I've read have this many funny comments. It's a bittersweet feeling, actually, and I think sharing my problems with strangers did not happen to be as bad as I thought it would be. It was bad, just not as horrible I imagined it would be. Most of the comments advised me not to let two old friends get in the middle of my relationship with my husband. I even got many people telling me to call Kenneth and have him apologize to my husband. To be honest, that was a little bit outrageous for me. I never thought of doing that because I knew that it would lead to an awkward scenario. I didn't want Kenny to find out I have issues with my husband, and I didn't want to give my husband the impression that I was still in contact with Kenneth. Some things are to be left private, and there are just some boundaries that should never be crossed. Look at me talking so seriously, like I did not end up doing exactly what I'm condemning. I know it sounds stupid, but hey, you all suggested it, so I guess we are in this boat together. I saw most people saying that it was unfair for me to be the one getting punished for only trying to help and honor my own old friends. Many people also said that they saw the side my husband was coming from and that it was not unusual for him to feel disrespected. When I showed the comments to my sister, she also agreed that it was not okay for me to be alone in this issue when Felicia and Kenneth were out there living their life. Felicia is also a part of this issue because my husband cannot just stand the fact that she cheated on her husband. Since it was the only option I had to call Kenneth and set up a meeting with him and my husband. Please get me wrong. The reason I set up the meeting was not so Kenneth would beg my husband on my behalf. I only set up the meeting so Kenneth would apologize to my husband for setting up a meeting at 6 p.m. I realized that if I was in my husband's shoes, I would also want an apology from him and the woman that set up the time. The comments really made me calm down and say things from a different light. I called Kenneth and asked them to come to Florida immediately. He told me his schedule was tied and he had work. But when I told him what it was about, he did not refuse, because he agreed that he owed me a favor for what I'd done for Felicia. Even though it was not something I would have ever thought of doing on a normal day because it was just too awkward and outrageous, I had to do it because I was out of options. If you're wondering how the meeting went, it was not as messy as I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely awkward and unusual. It was even more uncomfortable than I thought to see my husband and Kenneth in the same room. I'm just trying to say that things could have gone south really fast, but it didn't. Kenneth did not hesitate to ask for my husband's apology and explain to him that he had to work the whole day, and that was why I decided to set up the meeting that late. He also said that he had to catch up on a flight early the next morning and knew that there would be no opportunity for us to meet again, so he had no choice. My husband accepted his apology, and that was it. He didn't even bother to touch his food or try to make conversation with Kenneth. When I tried speaking to my husband later that evening, we had a long conversation, and he made me understand that the only reason he got angry was because I had gone in the evening, and I didn't even think of calling him on the phone. He said that made him feel disrespected, but he had to let it go because of how dedicated I had been to settling our issues. He also respected the majors I'd gone through just to make sure that I respected this opinion. He said he did not like the fact that I set up a meeting with Kenneth and that it was awkward, but he liked the fact that I had gone through such extreme measures. According to Tony, he wanted to teach me a lesson and make me understand that in a marriage, it was right to respect your partner's opinion. I told him that I had learnt my lesson and would not be doing that again. I got to understand that if I was in my husband's shoes, and he wanted to see an old female friend that I did not really resonate with, it would also make me upset to find out he still went to see the same person at 6 p.m. in the evening, even after I refused. I learnt my lesson from how cold and distant my husband had been towards me. I'm definitely going to start respecting certain boundaries, because no friendship is worth my marriage with my husband. At the end of the day, friends grow apart and then move on with their own lives. Felicia, for example, had gotten married years ago and moved to another country with her husband. She even got married before me, and we lost all contact. If she didn't cheat on her husband and was left stranded, she would have never even tried to contact me. That is not worth running my marriage for. I do not regret helping her, but I do regret how I went to dinner with Kenneth without getting my husband's full permission. Everything is over now, and I am wiser and stronger. I'm just very grateful that my marriage did not suffer a huge loss because of something so trivial. Big thanks to all the readers out there. You all don't know how much help you were to me. Peace and bye.
Sometimes you would wonder why most men become violent, untrusting, and cold-hearted. Sometimes it's better to put yourself in someone else's shoes before judging them. Women make us do things that we have never even thought that we would do to them. It's easy judging a male without hearing their side of the story, but with women, they don't have to explain themselves. If they say someone did something to them, you just believe them without asking anything, right? The thing got worse when the tables had turned. You fall in love with someone and end up marrying them, not knowing that the person you had thought you knew, you actually knew nothing about them. You just knew the basic information. And if you find out things about your wife that you didn't know about, not small things, but things that would ruin your relationship and ruin her life if they were to come out. Well, I felt betrayed and lied to, so I ruined her life. I know it was ruthless of me, but how would you have dealt with a wife you had thought you knew, only to find out that she had been lying to you for years, and when you ask her about her past, she becomes defensive and violent? I would never allow a woman to make me a fool, but she did. And guess what? I ruined everything for her. I am ruthless, right? Maybe I am my father's child after all. Allow me to tell you my shameless wife's story and how things turned bitter fast. So I am 29. I grew up in a small family, but I didn't have a pleasant childhood, so I had serious anger issues. I do not allow people to make me a fool because even at school, I dealt with those who thought they would bully me. I am a quiet person, I agree, but do not think I am a fool because my quietness could become ruthless at times. So as I was saying, I grew up with my alcoholic father. At home, I was an elder brother followed by my two siblings who are twins, M and M F 25. Our mother broke up with my father because he was an alcoholic and abusive, so I think she couldn't take it anymore. Then she left. What angered me is that she left me with responsibilities to take care of my siblings while she went out there, enjoying. She left my father when my siblings had just turned 10 years and I was 14 years old. Imagine the struggle I had faced grooming and raising my siblings without any parents because my father was busy getting drunk each and every minute he got. I had to step up and become a parent to my siblings, including my father, who would sometimes come back home unable to even take himself to the loo. So I had to clean up his mess every day. I grew up in a township called Alexandra, mostly known as Alex or Gomorrah. At the age of 14, I had to try and make ends meet for my siblings, since our father got fired from his job because of his drinking behavior. I still don't know what had caused my father to be an alcoholic and a woman beater like that, because whatever it is, it's really huge to a point that he decided to resort to booze. I had to attend school, make sure my siblings also went to school. On top of that, I had to make sure we sleep with something on our stomachs. So I worked at a nearby tavern on weekends or holidays as a cleaner, while I also took some piece jobs at people's houses to clean their yards or wash roofs. It was not easy, but I had to do what a man had to do to survive. I grew up with the anger that our father had neglected us and chose a bottle over his own children. Not only that, but he was an absent father, even though he was living with us. Well, more like he was coming home when he had enough for the day and missed his bed. He never played any parent role to any of us. I had once witnessed my father beating my mother, but when I asked my mother why she was patient with him, she told me that I should not interfere in adults' issues, more especially if those adults were my parents and in a relationship. Things kept getting worse to a point that our mother miscarried her pregnancy before she got pregnant with the twins. I tried to reason with her and told her that she should just put the love she had for father aside and leave while she still had a chance, or she would leave in a coffin. What she said to me was that I had ruined her life because father started mistreating her right after I was born. She told me that things got worse when father got fired from his job. I used to hear rumors that my father had been spreading lies about my mother since they were both alcoholics and toxic parents. My father had spread rumors that mother was a prostitute that trapped him with children he didn't even want. Instead of mom to leave father, she stayed with all the rumors that were circulating around the township. She still stayed by my father's side and beard with all the abuse she endured. I asked her to take us and leave father because he was not going to change. Instead, he was going to kill her. Father heard that I had given my mother that advice. He started beating me up also and told me that I was not his child. After he was done beating me, he slapped mom and called her names. That was when mother pushed father and he fell on the ground since he was way too intoxicated and ran out. Till that day, she never came back for us. She left with nothing on her hand, only her identity document. We don't know where she went, and she never even tried to at least check how we were. My wish was to become an archaeologist. I loved studying about the human's past, studying buildings, tools, graves, etc. I grew up a curious person wanting to know about how things were made and how our ancestors had lived. Unfortunately, not all dreams and wishes come true because I had to step up and pause other life plans I had and take care of my siblings. It was really tough, but what they say about strong people, or the lie people used to tell themselves, was, "What doesn't break you makes you stronger." The situation that we were facing at home broke me, but believe me when I say it made me stronger. The circumstances broke me to a point that whatever I did for my siblings. So one day when I was in the 10th grade, some drug merchant approached me, and he was also from around the township. He asked me to sell weed at school, and he would give me a cut for every sale I made. I declined the offer, reason being I didn't want to get into any trouble at school, and the cops were regularly coming to our school to check on drugs, since the township is known for drugs and most dealers were high school students. After I had declined that offer, things got worse at home. I was no longer getting piece jobs, and the job I had at the tavern was cut off because I had to focus at school. Sometimes we would take food from the school. I won't lie, it helped us survive, but I had to come up with a plan, so I ended up taking the weed merchant offer. I had no choice but to make ends meet as a big brother and an elder at home. For 2.5 years, I continued with the merchant job, and there were new drugs that had been introduced in the township, so I had 2 merchandise to push. It really helped me because I was able to look after my siblings and buy them small toiletries. I didn't last long in the drugs piece job because I still believed that I had to work hard so I could get at least a scholarship to become an archaeologist. A month after I had told the guy that I was no longer willing to work or pass the weed, something bad happened. So the guy that I was working for and selling drugs once stopped my sister when she was coming from school. That time she was 13 years old and had just got into high school. The guy sexually violated her. Luckily, my little brother, the girl's twin, saw him and asked for help. My sister was traumatized to even go out and play with other kids. That was really hard for me because I was a male person, and I didn't know how to make her feel better. I wished we had responsible parents. I was also going through my own things at the same time. I had to make sure my siblings were okay. And what happened to Princess, little twin sister, never happens again. I was losing my mind. I was angry at the fact that my parents had left me with the huge responsibility. I felt alone and sometimes wished death upon myself. But first I had to find the buster that had hurt my baby sister and teach him a lesson he would never forget. I saw the guy a week later chilling with some of my schoolmates. My anger level got very high to a point that I beat him with no mercy, all the anger I had in my heart, and I took it all out on him. The more I was beating him, the more I felt like I was fighting my demons. I was stopped by my schoolmates since the guy got unconscious. Luckily, he didn't die but was injured badly and was going to use a wheelchair to go wherever he wanted to go. Time flew very fast. A couple of months passed and I was in matric or the 12th grade. I don't know how I managed to get that far, only God knows. Unfortunately, I didn't get a scholarship and it was going to take time for me to finish studying archaeology and raise funds for it. I had siblings to think of, so finishing high school meant I had to look for a proper job so I would be able to take care of my siblings and find a proper place to stay with them, even if it was a 2-roomed house. As planned, God came through for me when I had least expected. I found a part-time job as a cleaner at some small supermarkets in Alex, our township. With the small money I got, I managed to get my siblings' needs. As small as it was, but I appreciated everything I had got. I worked at the supermarket for a couple of months until I got an opportunity to work at a retail store as a cashier, since I had graduated from the 12th grade. Since then, life has changed for the better. But the only thing I cared about was my siblings' well-being, nothing else. 3 years passed, and my siblings finished high school. I was the proudest brother. Our father was found dead at our home. They believed that he had passed away in his sleep. My siblings took the passing of our father to heart. As much as he was not a perfect and present father, but they loved him. They believed that he was going to change and be a father to them or us. While me, on the other hand, I didn't feel anything. His passing or living didn't mean anything to me, and it didn't affect me in any way. In those 3 years, a lot had happened. Good things happened. I got another job opportunity as a manager at a food restaurant, name withheld. I was a supervisor for a couple of months up until I got a permanent position as a restaurant manager. As much as my dreams of becoming an archaeologist didn't come true, I was grateful for everything that was happening in my life. Princess and Paul passed well in their 12th grade. They got student funds from NSFAS. I was really happy for them. I wanted them to chase and achieve their dreams and goals. Months passed when I was at work. There was this lady who ordered some lunch. She was not impressed with the service she got, so she asked for a manager. As I went to her table, she started complaining about one of the waitress's attitude and that her order was not made the way she wanted. She was furious and threatened to sue the restaurant. So I had to convince her that we would sort out her issue and prepare another order for her, which was on the house. The more she talked, I was no longer focusing or hearing what she was saying because I was staring at her. She was a dark caramel woman with natural hair and no makeup. She was a goddess and a true African woman. I got attracted to her. I mean, I never had a serious girlfriend. I only got what we call booty calls. Seeing her for the first time blew my mind and softened my cold heart. Days turned to weeks. I was still thinking about this lady and her beauty. I even decided to work outside the office so that I can see her when she comes back, while my other thoughts were telling me that she was not going to come back since she was not impressed with our service. I mean, first impressions last, right? After a month, she came back. She had ordered a takeaway, so I took it upon myself to be the one to serve her. I wanted to see her beauty again. When I took her order to her table, she greeted me with her beautiful smile. She had dimples and looked so innocent. She asked for my name, and I told her then. She thanked me for what I did the last time, which I didn't remember. In the apartment building that I had stayed in, I didn't know anyone and I didn't care. All I did was wake up, go to work, and come back. I was not a person who liked going out. I believed that all people are fake, so I didn't want to mix myself with anyone in the building. So one day, when I was on my way to work, I saw this girl again. Well, more like she saw me. I didn't know she was staying at the same apartment building, so she offered me a lift to work. She had a very nice car. I thought she was those spoiled brats who were from rich families. We started talking and she asked which block I was staying in, and I told her along with my house number. It had been long since I had got laid, so her coming to my apartment would be a pure torture and temptation. Obviously, I was taken by her beauty, but a man has needs, so I was going to invite her for a Netflix and chill in my room. She told me that she would see me later. She even called me neighbor, but I didn't understand that phrase because she was staying on another block floor, so how was I her neighbor? One weekend, I heard a knock. I had thought it was my siblings because they used to come over during weekends or when they were not busy with school. To my surprise, it was the dark caramel goddess. She had come with a dish of home-cooked meals. I didn't cook every day because I was always busy going to work very early, then coming back late, so I didn't have time to cook. And on that weekend, she came at the right time because I was too lazy to cook. I welcomed her in and thought that I didn't know her name. I didn't even ask it when she gave me a lift. So that weekend, she told me that her name was Samantha, 28, and she was an advocate in one of the firms not far from where I was working. We spent the day together. She was a great company. I had even forgotten about work stuff. I enjoyed spending time with her. She promised to come back again next weekend, but before that, she invited me to her room for dinner. I didn't promise her anything, but I told her that I'll try because I had a lot of work to do. Time passed and we became friends. We would visit each other regularly when we were free, or must I say she visited me regularly. Our friendship was fun. She made me soften my heart in some things. I developed some care, love. She showed me what I didn't know when I grew up. You know, love, care, being taken care of. I was not used to all that, which made me somehow not comfortable, because I was used to being the one taking care of my siblings and my father's mess whenever he came back intoxicated. I introduced her to my siblings, and they were happy that there was someone I was spending time with. My sister also got someone to talk to about girl stuff. I was happy that my sister had got someone who she can trust and talk to about anything, because as much as she would me, her problems, but she was not really comfortable, especially after what once happened to her. Christmas approached, and it would be our second year, having a proper Christmas celebration with my siblings, and that we would be celebrating with an extra person, which was something we didn't know and not used to since it had been only the three of us. So Samantha had decorated my apartment. I didn't understand why she was doing all that. I didn't believe in those Christmas decorations and trees. I think it was a waste of money. Samantha and my sister helped each other with the preparations and cooking. It was a really beautiful day, and my siblings were happy. My heart was at ease. Later that day, I was chilling with Samantha in her apartment, so I decided to get to know her better. I asked her about her background and why she didn't go home because most people had gone home during the festive season. So I didn't understand why she was still around. She told me that she didn't have any family. Her family had disowned her. I didn't ask any more questions. So we decided to talk about random things while watching a series called Riverdale. One thing led to another. One minute we were watching a series while having small talks here and there. The next minute she kissed me. It shocked me because I had thought we were just going to be friends. I had tried to ignore and hide the feeling I got when I was around her because I was scared that she would reject me or leave just like my mother. The following year, I remember it was the end of March. The restaurant was busy, so we closed very late that time. Samantha and I were seeing each other. I won't say we were in a relationship, but we were having fun and satisfying each other. None of us had said anything to anyone, so I wouldn't say we were in a relationship. She came to the restaurant after she had knocked off from work and waited for me till the restaurant closed. I had saved enough money to buy myself a small car. At least that would take me from one destination to another, so I'll also be able to see my siblings at their student residential area. When we got to our apartment, we spent some time in the car in silence. Imagine. No one said anything to anyone up until she broke the ice and declared that she had developed feelings for me. Well, I didn't know what to say, so I just said, okay. Did I do wrong? She told me that she was tired of acting like she didn't have any feelings and she was willing to wait for me if I was not ready for any relationship. When I got into my apartment, I thought about her declaration. I also had feelings for her. But I didn't know if it was love feelings or lust feelings. It was confusing. I then called my siblings and asked for their advice. I mean, it was only the three of us, so they had become my friends. My sister liked Samantha, so she said the expected. She advised me to allow my heart to love and be loved. When she said that, I thought about how Samantha had been ever since the day she first came to my apartment. She had been nothing but a great help. She would come over with food she cooked, or she would cook at my apartment. She showed me what I never thought I would ever get, which was love. She made me and siblings experience a woman's love and warmth. As much as she was showing us all that, I had my doubts that she would get tired soon and leave. Having a female figure was not what I was used to, so you must understand what I was going through. I didn't want to have my hopes high and increase false hope to my siblings. That's why I didn't know what to say when she declared her love. My heart had no love for anyone else but my siblings. I didn't have any space to love or care about any strangers, which is why I never had a girlfriend, only once off. A week after I had a talk with my siblings, they asked me to give myself a chance to be loved and learn to love others because my heart deserved that since the only thing I did was to love them. So I took their advice and went to Samantha's apartment and told her why I had been distanced, then told her about my background story so that she would understand why I acted the way I did. Fortunately, she understood. Then we decided to formalize our relationship. She was a great partner, as much as I had my doubts, but I gave her the benefits of it. I allowed myself to fall hard for her. Our relationship was too perfect, she was too perfect. My siblings were happy, and so was I. We dated for a year, and I decided that I wanted to make her my wife. She was hesitant at first because of her family issues, but assured her that I would be there for her. She just needed to contact her parents, so we could set a date for our wedding. In my own view, I believe that everyone needed their parents' blessings when they take a huge step in their life like getting married. Unfortunately for me, I only had my siblings, no extended family or anything, so the only blessings I would get were from my siblings. Samantha asked me to accompany her to her home because she didn't want to approach or talk to her parents alone, especially when they had disowned her, which meant I was going to help her mend her relationship with her parents. She was my woman after all, so I agreed to help her talk to her parents. So we had set a date that we would go to her hometown in Verulam to talk to her parents. I didn't understand the story behind her parents disowning her. I didn't know what she did, and Sam was not willing to share it. Whenever I asked why her parents had disowned her, she would just dismiss the topic or get angry. So I guessed whatever it was that happened was really huge, but I didn't want to push it. Or was I wrong to chill and not care much about it? A month passed and we went to her hometown. Mind you, we were staying in Johannesburg and we had to travel to Durban, which is two different provinces. So we opted to fly to Durban because it would be easy and save time. We booked a hotel in Umhlanga so we could be closer to her hometown. I was fascinated by Durban. It was really a beautiful and attractive city. I was only used to Johannesburg, so it was a great break for me to travel to another province. The following day, we went to her home. She was so nervous to a point that she was even shaking and emotional. I didn't know what to do, so I just comforted her and assured her that everything will go well. If her parents didn't give us their blessings, we would have moved on with our lives and continued with our wedding. I also didn't have any parents to give me any blessings. When we reached her home, it was in rural areas. Her home was big, but you would see that it used to be beautiful. So I opted to stay inside the car, but she refused and asked me to go in with her for moral support. Okay. We went in, and what I saw really haunted me. The way her father was looking at her. If eyes were able to murder a person, Sam would have died on the spot. The man was furious, and you would see that he wanted nothing to do with Sam, but his wife pleaded with him to sit down and listen to what their daughter had to say. I saw that Samantha was not really comfortable. She apologized to her parents. The father kept chuckling and saying, That raised an eyebrow because if a child came to humble herself and apologize to her parents in order to mend their relationship and right her wrongs. Why would a parent act like Sam's father unless whatever Sam did was pretty big? Tell me if I'm wrong. The meeting didn't go as planned, but the mother softened her heart and gave her and our relationship blessings. She then advised Sam that she shouldn't do what she did the last time because it would ruin her marriage. I still didn't understand what they were talking about, and I was not going to ask anything because it was clear that she didn't trust me enough to let me in her past. A few months later, it was during winter holidays. My siblings had closed at university. So we decided to get married in Durban. I had heard that it is the warmest province to be, especially in winter, and for her parents to be able to attend the wedding. The wedding went well. We got married under community of property, which meant our estates were regarded as one. I know it was careless and stupid of me, right? The first few months were a bliss. I was happy. We were happy. I was looking forward to spending my life with her and my siblings. I didn't want any children because I didn't know what kind of parent I would have been and if I wouldn't be like my parents. As much as my life had improved a lot, I would have afforded my children and be able to raise them like I had raised my siblings, but I was scared. It was fear of the unknown. Samantha was a good wife. Well, I thought she was. She showed me love that I had never experienced, the care I never knew about. She made me feel like a man, you know. She gave me that respect and my place as her man. We had bought a house in the suburbs of Sandton, as you know, that married couples had to stay together, and an apartment life was no longer an ideal for us. My love for her grew every day to a point that I never thought she would ever do something to ruin our marriage. My guts kept warning me to leave a space for disappointments and not throw my cold heart again because I was going to need it someday. I shouldn't have become a jelly, a softie. She found me with a cold and uncaring heart. She loved me still and welcomed me as her partner, but I stupidly became soft and loved with no boundaries. Our marriage started changing after 3 years. Well, more like Samantha started changing. She had so many cases to deal with. I understood that, but she was overdoing it, and it raised suspicions. She thought I was blind just because I loved her, but I saw everything. She had started getting clients from overseas, which I didn't understand because there were other advocates overseas. The time things at work were not going well. One thing I got smart about was to not deposit all my money to the bank. I took some of my money to a secret spot around the house so that if rainy days were to come, I would be able to take care of myself. My siblings were in their last year in university, plus they had gotten internships, so the money I had hidden was going to be good to maintain myself. Samantha's behavior got worse to a point that she had even lost respect for me. She was no longer that loving and caring wife. I tried ignoring that, but no. Man, she was spiraling out of control. She got high and mighty just when things were not going well on my side. I had thought it was pressure from work, but it was not. So one day she came back and told me that she was moving out because we were arguing a lot more than making love. It was stressful to me because I was dealing with work issues, and on the other hand, I had to deal with Samantha's behavior. I didn't stop her from leaving, so I gave her a go-ahead. I took it upon myself to find a private investigator to look into her behavior. It was clear that she was cheating on me. So I made sure to pay the PI with the cash I had been saving, so follow up on Sam. Then I remembered that she had a secret that she didn't want to tell me about, and it made her parents disown her. So I called her mother since I had her number and asked her for a meeting with her husband. A few days after Samantha had left, I traveled to her hometown to speak to her parents, hoping that I would get answers of their misfortune because even on our wedding day, her father didn't show up, which meant something huge had happened between them. When I got there, the parents welcomed me well. I then asked them why their relationship with Samantha ended because Sam was not opening up. The mother got emotional and told me that she didn't want to remember the shame Samantha had put in their home. I didn't understand at first until Sam's father asked me to have a talk with him outside and asked the mother to prepare us something to eat. The father then told me that Samantha had disappointed him in a most cruel and shameful way. He furthered his explanation by saying that years ago when Samantha was supposed to go to university, at their home couldn't afford her school fees and she couldn't get a scholarship and a student loan, so she resorted to selling her body. I didn't believe what I heard. The father was also emotional when he shared the story, so I asked him not to finish, but he decided otherwise. So furthered by saying her daughter was on a church worship team. I knew Sam had a beautiful voice. I had heard her several times singing when she was cooking or bathing. So it wasn't surprising that she was on a church worship team. To continue the father's story, he told me that her daughter had slept with the priest in exchange for money because she wanted to raise money to go to university. So her affair with the priest continued until she was caught by the priest's son, who later blackmailed her to sleep with him, and he would give her the same amount of money the priest was giving her. She agreed and took what she did as a business transaction. Unfortunately, the priest's son recorded their sex tape and posted it on social media. People in their small town knew or found out about the video that was circulating until they saw it from one of the church members. That was when Samantha spoke some harsh and unforgettable words to her parents. Then her father threw her out and told her that she would be welcome back at home once she had changed her sinful ways. Unfortunately, later on, they heard that Sam had joined OnlyFans to make money and her videos were all over the internet showing her private parts. So he disowned her because instead of righting her wrongs, she continued doing the shameful actions. The following day, I went back to Johannesburg. What Samantha's father had told me really shook me because I never thought Samantha would do something like that. I mean, she was an advocate, and her appearance was of a very humble person. When I got home, I found her inside our home and she gave me an envelope which had divorce papers. I couldn't believe her, so I read the papers and found out that she wanted 50% of everything I had owned. I mean, this person's career was booming, so why would she want 50% of all my assets? I couldn't allow her to walk away with my hard work. So I had to fight her. If I had to be ruthless, then so be it, because I was not going to allow her to walk away freely. I had invested a lot into our marriage that included my heart. I allowed her to soften my heart, and she got the nerve to file for a divorce and request 50% of everything I owned. I got so furious and all the anger that I had came back flooding. So on the day of the divorce hearing proceeding, I took out the information that I had got from the PI, including her nudes and sex tapes that she once did when she was selling her body. She couldn't believe it when she saw the tapes being played at the court, which also revealed that she had cheated with a client on our marriage. I knew right there and then that I had ruined her life, her reputation, and her career. She would never even think of crossing me and using me again. I hated her for doing the same thing that my mother had done. She lost everything, including her dignity, and I was very much happy about that. Was I wrong to do that? Please give me some advice.